The alarm screens lit up across Valara Prime with red warning lights. Ambassador Narration stood in the control center, her forearms shaking as she watched the scanner readings. 30 warships had just entered their star system. They were Kresh vessels, and everyone in the galaxy knew what that meant. The Kresh didn't visit planets to trade or talk. They came to conquer and enslave. "Send the distress call," Elder Saverin said quietly. His old voice was steady, but Lyra could see the fear in his large eyes. "Send it on all Coalition channels. Tell them we need help immediately." Lyra's fingers moved quickly across the control panel. She typed the emergency code that would broadcast their message across dozens of star systems. "Help us," the message said. "Valara Prime is under attack. The Kresh fleet has arrived. We have no military defenses. Requesting immediate assistance from any Coalition forces." She pressed the send button and waited. The message would reach the nearest Coalition worlds in minutes. Help would come. It had to come. That was what the Galactic Coalition promised when Valara joined 20 years ago. Member worlds protected each other. "How long until they reach our planet?" Elder Saverin asked. The technician at the scanner station didn't look up. 6 hours, Elder, maybe 7 if they move slowly. 6 hours. Lyra felt her hearts beating faster. In 6 hours, the Kresh would be in orbit above their cities. Their people had no weapons, no shields, no way to fight back. The Valarans were farmers and artists. They grew food and created beautiful things. They had never hurt anyone. "We're receiving responses," the communications officer said. "The Thaxian Empire says they will send a diplomatic team. They can arrive in 3 days. 3 days?" Lyra's voice cracked. "We don't have 3 days." More responses came in. The Corinthians offered to mediate peace talks. The Zenthari expressed their concerns and promised to bring the matter before the Coalition Council. Everyone had kind words. Nobody was sending ships that could actually fight. Elder Saverin sat down heavily in his chair. He looked very old suddenly. "Then we are alone." Captain Jake Morrison was drinking coffee when the alert came through. He set his cup down and looked at the message on his screen. "Distress call from Valara Prime. Kresh attack fleet. No defenses." The message had been sent to every Coalition member world, and apparently nobody was responding with actual military help. "Amy, get in here," he called out. Lieutenant Amy Brooks walked into his office, still wearing her exercise clothes. She'd been in the gym when the call came. "I saw it, sir. The Valarans are in trouble." "What's our position?" Morrison asked. "We're 4 hours away if we push the engines hard. The Nebraska and the Carolina are with us. 3 carrier groups total." She paused. "Sir, we weren't asked specifically." The call went to everyone. Morrison stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the stars streaming past as his ship moved through faster than light travel. The EDF Valiant was one of Earth's newest warships. It was built for one purpose, to fight and win battles in space. "Get me Admiral Cole on the comm," he said. Amy nodded and left. 2 minutes later, the screen on Morrison's desk lit up with Admiral Frank Cole's face. The Admiral was on Earth, half a galaxy away, but faster-than-light communication made it seem like he was in the next room. "I'm guessing you saw the distress call," Cole said. "Yes, sir. We're the closest Earthships to Valara Prime, 4 hours away. And you want permission to respond?" "Sir, they're asking for help. Nobody else is sending military support. Just diplomats and mediators." Morrison leaned forward. "These people are going to die if someone doesn't help them." Cole was quiet for a moment. "Jake, we're new to the Coalition. Provisional members. If we go in there with guns blazing, we might start a diplomatic incident. The Kresh are a recognized empire. They have rights under Coalition law." "They're slavers, sir." "I know what they are." Cole rubbed his face. "But Earth Command wants us to play nice with our new neighbors. We're supposed to be learning how things work out here, not starting wars." Morrison felt frustration building in his chest. This was exactly the kind of political nonsense he hated. People were in danger, and everyone was worried about paperwork and protocols. "Sir, with respect, I didn't join the Earth Defense Force to watch innocent people get enslaved while we worry about hurt feelings. We have 3 carrier groups right there. We can stop this." Cole stared at him through the screen. Then slowly a smile appeared on the Admiral's face. "You're right. Send your battle group to Valara Prime. Protect those people. Use whatever force is necessary." "Thank you, sir." "Jake, one more thing. Try not to blow up too many Kresh ships. Just enough to make them leave." Morrison grinned. "I'll do my best, sir." 20 minutes later, the EDF Valiant changed course. Behind it, the two other carriers in Morrison's battle group followed. The Nebraska and the Carolina were slightly smaller than the Valiant, but each ship carried enough firepower to level a city. Around the carriers, dozens of smaller ships moved into formation. Destroyers, frigates, fighter carriers, and support vessels. Nearly 80 ships in total. All ships reporting ready, Amy said from her station on the bridge. Course set for Valara Prime. We'll arrive in 3 hours and 40 minutes. Good, send a message to the Valarans. Tell them help is coming. Chief Engineer Lucas Grant's voice came through the ship's intercom. Captain, you want me to push the engines past safety limits? Negative, Lucas. I want this ship ready to fight when we arrive, not broken down. Standard fast travel speed. Copy that, sir. Dr. Helen Carter appeared on the bridge carrying her medical kit. Captain, should I prepare the medical bay for casualties? Morrison looked at her. Helen was new to space combat. She'd spent most of her career studying alien life forms, not treating wounded soldiers. But she was smart and she learned fast. Yes, Doctor. Prepare for both our people and potential Velaran refugees. We don't know what we're going to find when we get there. Understood. The bridge settled into focused silence. Everyone knew their jobs. The crew of the Valiant had trained together for 2 years. They'd run combat simulations hundreds of times. But this would be their first real battle. Morrison pulled up the data on Valara Prime. It was a beautiful planet covered mostly in farmland and forests. The Valarans were a peaceful species. They'd never even had wars among themselves. Their entire military consisted of a small police force that dealt with accidents and natural disasters, and now the Kresh were coming to take it all away. Sir, we're picking up Kresh communications, Amy said. They're broadcasting warnings to Valara Prime. They're demanding immediate surrender. What are the Valarans saying? They're begging for more time, asking the Kresh to wait for coalition mediators. Morrison felt anger burning in his chest. The Kresh knew nobody was coming to help. They were probably laughing at the Valarans' desperate pleas. Amy, prepare a message. Broadcast it on all frequencies when we drop out of faster-than-light travel. What should it say, sir? Morrison thought for a moment. Tell them this. To the Kresh fleet at Valara Prime. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. You are ordered to leave this system immediately. Any hostile action against Valara Prime or its people will be considered an act of war. You have 30 minutes to comply. Amy raised her eyebrows. Sir, that's pretty direct. Good. I want them to know exactly where we stand. 3 hours and 37 minutes later, the human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Velaran system. Instantly, every scanner and sensor on both sides locked onto each other. On Valara Prime, Lyra Shen stared at her screen in confusion. The readings made no sense. These weren't Thaxian ships or Zenthari vessels. The computer was identifying them as human ships, but that couldn't be right. Humans were new to the coalition. They barely had any territory. Why would they come all the way out here? Then the message came through, broadcast on every frequency. A human voice speaking clear and calm. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. You are ordered to leave this system immediately. Lyra's hands shook as she brought up the visual feed. The human ships looked nothing like the elegant vessels of the coalition. They were blocky and angular, covered in armor plating and weapons. They looked like they'd been built for one purpose: war. Elder Savrin, she whispered. The humans are here. They came to help us. The old Valaran looked at the screen, his eyes wide. Why would they come? We never asked Earth specifically. I don't know, Lyra said. But they're here, and they're challenging the Kresh fleet. On the bridge of the Valiant, Morrison watched the Kresh warships on his display. 30 vessels, most of them cruisers and battleships, big, powerful, and well-armed. The Kresh had been conquering worlds for 200 years. They knew how to fight. No response from the Kresh yet, Amy reported. They're probably trying to figure out who we are, Morrison said. Lucas, how are the weapons? All systems green, Captain. We're ready? Good. Morrison settled back in his chair. Now we wait and see if they're smart enough to leave. War Master Krull stared at the scanner display on his command ship. 3 large vessels and dozens of smaller ones had just appeared at the edge of the system. The computer identified them as human ships, which meant nothing to him. He'd never heard of humans before. What do we know about this species? He asked his intelligence officer. The officer checked his database. Very little, War Master. They joined the coalition recently. Provisional members only. Their homeworld is called Earth, located in a distant sector. How many worlds do they control? Just their home system, sir. Maybe a few colonies. Nothing significant, Krull laughed. A species with one star system was threatening him? He commanded the 3rd Kresh Fleet, 30 of the finest warships in the Dominion. He'd conquered 12 worlds in his career. What could these newcomers possibly do? Ignore their message, he ordered. Continue our approach to the planet. If they interfere, destroy them. His weapons officer looked uncertain. Sir, shouldn't we at least scan their capabilities? Fine, run a quick scan. But keep moving toward Valara Prime. The scan results came back a minute later. The weapons officer's face went pale. Sir, those ships are heavily armed. Very heavily armed. Each of their large vessels carries more weapons than 3 of our battleships. Impossible, Krull said. Let me see that. He looked at the scan data himself. The officer was right. The human ships were smaller than his dreadnoughts, but they were covered in weapons. Missile tubes, railguns, energy cannons, and systems he didn't even recognize. And their armor was incredibly thick, far thicker than standard coalition designs. They're built like fortresses, the weapons officer said quietly. Krull felt a moment of doubt, then pushed it away. Numbers were what mattered in space combat. He had 30 ships. They had 3 large ones and maybe 50 smaller vessels. Simple mathematics, all ships prepare for combat, he ordered. Target their lead vessel. We'll destroy it first to show them what happens when you challenge the Kresh Dominion. On the Valiant's bridge, Amy watched her tactical display. Sir, the Kresh are powering up weapons. All 30 ships are targeting us, Morrison nodded slowly. Well, we gave them a chance. All ships, battle stations, fighter squadrons, launch when ready. Amy, target their lead ship. Which one is their leader? The biggest, ugliest one in the center. Can't miss it. Alarms rang through the Valiant as the crew rushed to combat positions. In the fighter bay, Commander Rick Palmer strapped into his cockpit. He'd been flying combat missions for 8 years, but never against actual enemies. All his experience was simulations and training exercises. Raptor Squadron, this is Palmer, he said over the comm. We're launching in 30 seconds. Remember your training. Watch each other's backs. And try not to die on our first real mission. His wingman, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, laughed nervously. That's your inspiring speech? Best I've got. Here we go. The Valiant's launch tubes opened and 40 fighters shot out into space. They were small, fast craft designed for one thing, hitting hard and not getting hit back. Each fighter carried enough missiles to cripple a cruiser. The Kresh fired first. Bright blue energy beams lanced across space toward the Valiant. Morrison gripped his chair as the bridge shook. Shields holding, Amy reported. Wait, no shields. Captain, those beams hit our armor directly. Why didn't our shields activate? We don't have shields, Morrison said calmly. What? Amy stared at him. Why not? Earth engineers couldn't figure out how to make them work reliably. So they just made the armor thicker, much thicker. Return fire all weapons, the Valiant unleashed hell. Railguns fired solid metal projectiles at incredible speeds. Missiles streaked across the distance. Energy cannons added their fire to the barrage. The Kresh lead ship's shields flared bright blue as they absorbed the impacts. Then the railgun rounds hit. The solid metal slugs punched straight through the shields like they weren't there and smashed into the Kresh hull. Explosions rippled across the enemy ship's surface. Krull felt his ship shake. Warning lights flashed across his control panels. What just happened? How did their weapons penetrate our shields? Unknown, sir. The projectiles they're firing are too fast and too solid. Our shields are designed to stop energy weapons and explosive missiles, not solid metal moving at those speeds. More impacts hit Krull's ship. He watched in horror as 3 holes appeared in his hull, venting atmosphere into space. One of his engine sections exploded. Evasive maneuvers. All ships scatter and return fire. But the human fighters were already among them. Palmer's squadron moved through the Kresh formation like sharks through a school of fish. The human pilots flew in ways that seemed impossible, spinning and turning so fast that the Kresh gunners couldn't track them. Fox 3, missile away, Palmer said calmly as he locked onto a Kresh cruiser. His missile hit the ship's engine section and detonated. The cruiser spun out of control, leaking fire and debris. These guys are slow, Sarah Kim said over the comm. Like flying against practice drones. She was right. The Kresh pilots were good by normal standards, but human pilots trained in Earth's high gravity. Their reflexes were faster. Their tolerance for G-forces higher. They could make turns that would knock a Kresh pilot unconscious. On Valara Prime, Lyra watched the battle on her screens in shocked silence. She'd seen space battles in historical recordings before. They were usually slow, careful affairs. Ships circled each other at long range, firing shields versus shields until one side gave up or was disabled. This was nothing like that. The humans were fighting like wild animals, closing to point-blank range, taking hits that should have destroyed their ships and hitting back twice as hard. Their smaller craft moved so fast her scanners could barely track them. Are all human battles like this? Elder Savrin asked quietly. I don't know, Lyra whispered. I don't think anyone knows. They're so new to the coalition. A communication request came through from the human fleet. Lyra accepted it with shaking fingers. A human face appeared on her screen. It was Captain Morrison. Ambassador Lyra Shen? He asked. Yes, Captain Morrison. Thank you for coming to help us. That's what we're here for. I need you to prepare your people for possible evacuation. If things go badly up here, we'll need to get civilians off the planet quickly. Do you think you can win? Morrison smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. Ma'am, we've already won. The Kresh just don't know it yet. But I want to be prepared for any situation. I understand. Captain, may I ask why Earth sent ships to help us? We never specifically requested assistance from your world. You asked for help. That's enough. Where we come from, when someone needs help and you can give it, you do. It's that simple. The communication cut off as Morrison returned to his battle. Lyra stared at the blank screen, trying to understand these strange creatures who came from across the galaxy to fight for people they'd never met. The battle lasted 17 minutes. 17 minutes of the most intense combat the sector had seen in 50 years. When it was over, 8 Kresh ships were completely destroyed. 15 more were crippled and drifting. The remaining 7 were running away as fast as their damaged engines could push them. The human fleet had taken damage too. The Valiant had dozens of holes in its armor. The Carolina had lost an engine section. 3 fighters hadn't made it back. But they'd won decisively. Krull sat in his damaged command chair, staring at his ruined fleet in disbelief. How had this happened? His intelligence officer had said humans were new to space, barely a threat. But they'd just destroyed the 3rd Fleet like it was nothing. War Master, we're receiving a message from the human commander. Put it through. Captain Morrison's face appeared on Krull's screen. The human looked calm, almost relaxed. War Master Krull, this is your final warning. Leave this system now. If you ever come back, if you ever threaten Valara Prime again, we'll hunt down every ship in your fleet. Are we clear? Krull wanted to argue, to threaten, to salvage some dignity. But looking at the wreckage of his fleet, he knew he had no leverage. We're leaving. Smart choice. Morrison's image disappeared. The surviving Kresh ships limped away from Valara Prime, their faster-than-light drives charging slowly. Within an hour, they were gone. On the Valiant's bridge, Morrison let out a long breath. Casualty report. 18 wounded, 3 dead from fighter squadron losses, Amy reported quietly. Could have been much worse. It's always worse than it should be, Morrison said. He stood up. I need to talk to our people. Make sure the wounded get to Helen immediately. Dr. Helen Carter was already working in the medical bay, treating burns and broken bones. She'd never seen combat injuries before. The simulations hadn't prepared her for the reality of young people hurt and scared, asking if they were going to be okay. You're going to be fine, she told a young pilot with a broken arm. The bone will heal in a few weeks. Did we win, Doc? Yes, we won. Now stay still and let me fix you up. Sergeant Nina Hayes appeared in the medical bay doorway. She'd been preparing her Marines for possible ground combat, but it never happened. Dr. Carter, the captain, wants to know if anyone's in critical condition. 2 people. Burns from an electrical fire. But they'll survive, Nina nodded. Good, we got lucky today. Lucky? We lost 3 pilots, I know. But it could have been 30. Or 300. In combat, you take your victories where you can and honor the ones who didn't make. 3 days after the battle, Ambassador Lyra Shen received an invitation to visit the EDF Valiant. Captain Morrison wanted to meet with Valaran leaders face-to-face to discuss security arrangements. Elder Savrin decided to go himself, bringing Lyra and 2 other diplomats. The shuttle ride up to the human ship made Lyra nervous. She'd seen what those vessels could do in combat. Now she was going inside one. The shuttle docked with the Valiant's bay and the doors opened. Lyra stepped out and immediately felt wrong. The air was thick and hot, making it hard to breathe. The gravity pulled at her body, making every movement feel slow and heavy. A human in uniform walked toward them. He was tall and moved easily despite the gravity. "Ambassador Lyra? I'm Lieutenant Chris Yang. I'll be your escort today. Welcome aboard the Valiant." "Thank you, Lieutenant." Lyra struggled to keep her breathing steady. "Is the environmental system malfunctioning? It seems very warm." Chris looked confused for a moment, then understanding crossed his face. "Oh, no, ma'am. This is normal for us. We keep the ship at standard Earth conditions." "I'm sorry, I should have thought about that. Would you like me to adjust the gravity and temperature in the meeting room?" "That would be helpful, yes." Elder Savrin was leaning on his walking staff, his 4 legs shaking from the effort of supporting his weight. "How do you function in these conditions?" "This is actually lighter than Earth gravity, sir. We run the ship at 0.9 G for comfort during long missions. Earth is 1.0 G. Lyra did the math in her head. 0.9. Earth gravity was 1.2 Velaran standard. The humans considered this light? What kind of world did they come from? Chris led them through the ship's corridors. Everywhere Lyra looked, she saw things that disturbed her. The walls were thick metal, covered in warning signs and emergency equipment. Human crew members walked past carrying equipment that looked far too heavy for beings their size to lift. Through one window, she saw the ship's gym where a human woman was lifting weights that would crush a Valaran. "Here's our meeting room," Chris said, opening a door. "I've adjusted the environment to Valaran standard. You should be more comfortable." The room was indeed cooler and the gravity lighter. Lyra felt like she could breathe again. Captain Morrison was already there, standing by a large table. Next to him was a woman with short dark hair. "Ambassador Lyra, Elder Savrin, thank you for coming. I'm Jake Morrison, and this is Dr. Helen Carter, our medical officer and xenobiologist." They all sat down, and Morrison began discussing patrol schedules and defense plans. But Lyra found it hard to focus. She kept thinking about what she'd seen on the ship. "Captain Morrison?" Elder Savrin interrupted. "Forgive me, but I must ask. What kind of world is Earth?" Morrison glanced at Helen, who nodded. "That's a fair question. Earth is a high-gravity world with a dense atmosphere rich in oxygen. We have extreme weather, active geology, and a complex ecosystem full of predators." "What is Earth's classification?" Elder Savrin pressed. Helen pulled up a datapad. "According to Coalition standards, Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world." The room went silent. Lyra felt her hearts beating faster. Class 12? That was nearly the maximum rating. Most Coalition species came from Class 2 through 4 worlds. Even the aggressive Kresh evolved on a Class 6. "How is that possible?" Lyra whispered. "Sapient life can't evolve on Class 12 worlds. The conditions are too hostile. And yet we did," Morrison said simply. "Earth tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We learned to adapt or die. Our ancestors faced predators, diseases, volcanoes, earthquakes, storms, ice ages. Those who survived passed on their traits. Over time, we became very good at not dying." Elder Savrin leaned forward. "That explains much about your combat capabilities. You fight like nothing we've seen before." "We fight like survivors," Helen said. "Every human alive carries the genetics of ancestors who beat impossible odds. It changes how we think, how we react to danger." Lyra had to know more. "May I see Earth's full classification file?" Helen handed her the datapad. Lyra read through it, her eyes growing wider with each line. Gravity 1.0 standard, far higher than most habitable worlds. Atmospheric oxygen at 21%, which would be toxic to many species over time. Temperature ranges from -90 degrees to +56 degrees. Active tectonic plates causing frequent earthquakes. Thousands of volcanic vents. Weather systems that could destroy cities. "You have storms that generate wind speeds over 300 kilometers per hour?" Lyra asked in disbelief. "Hurricanes and tornadoes, yes," Morrison confirmed. "They're dangerous, but we've learned to predict and survive them." "And these?" Lyra pointed to a section listing Earth's predators. "Lions, tigers, bears, crocodiles, sharks, snakes. You share your world with all these creatures?" "Shared, past tense," Helen said. "We're the apex predator now. Those animals learned to fear us more than we fear them." The concept made Lyra's head hurt. On Valara, the largest predator was a small bird that ate insects. The idea of creatures that hunted and killed beings as large as humans was terrifying. "I need to show the Council this information," Elder Savrin said slowly. "They need to understand what you are." Over the next week, Dr. Marcus Webb arrived from Earth specifically to help explain human biology to the Valarans. He was a xenoanthropologist, someone who studied how different species developed. Marcus was enthusiastic about his work, maybe too enthusiastic. The key thing to understand, Marcus explained to a room full of Valaran scientists, is that humans are persistence predators. Our ancestors hunted prey by chasing them until they collapsed from exhaustion. We can regulate our body temperature through sweating, so we don't overheat. Our prey couldn't do that. One Valaran scientist raised a hand. You hunted by chasing animals until they died from exhaustion? That sounds cruel. It was effective, Marcus said. It also required incredible endurance. Humans can run for hours without stopping. We're built for it. Strong legs, efficient breathing, mental determination. When you combine all those traits, you get a species that literally won't quit. Another scientist asked, "What about your intelligence? Surely that's your main survival trait." Intelligence helped, absolutely. But it developed alongside physical abilities. Our ancestors needed to be smart enough to make tools and plan hunts, but also strong enough and tough enough to use those tools effectively. Brain and body evolved together. Marcus pulled up a hologram showing human anatomy. Look at our bone density, our muscle attachment points, our cardiovascular system. We're overbuilt for a species of our size. That's because Earth required it. Natural selection was brutal on our world. Only the strongest, smartest, and most determined survived to have children. After the presentation, Lyra approached Marcus. "Dr. Webb, I have a question that might sound strange. Do humans enjoy violence?" Marcus thought carefully before answering. "No, most humans don't enjoy violence for its own sake, but we're comfortable with it in ways other species aren't. Violence was part of daily life on Earth for our ancestors. Hunt or starve, fight or die. That history is still in us. We can access aggression when needed, then turn it off when the danger passes. Like a switch? Exactly like a switch. It's a survival mechanism. You can't live in constant fear on a dangerous world. You'd go insane. So humans learned compartmentalization. We face the threat, deal with it, then move on." Lyra was beginning to understand. The humans hadn't come to Valara Prime because they loved war. They came because they saw a species in danger and couldn't walk away. Their history of surviving predators and disasters had taught them to protect the group, to help the weak, to stand against threats. Meanwhile, Sergeant Nina Hayes was working with Valaran Defense Forces, trying to teach them basic security protocols. It wasn't going well. "Okay, we're going to practice hand-to-hand combat," Nina announced to her class of 20 Valarans. The Valarans looked at each other nervously. One of them, a young male named Torin, raised his hand. "Sergeant Hayes, we don't really do physical fighting." "We're not built for it," Nina sighed. She'd been afraid of this. "I understand. But you need to know at least basic self-defense. What if someone attacks you and you have no weapons?" "That doesn't happen on Valara," Torin said. "We've never had violent crime." "Well, you've also never had the Kresh show up before today. Times change. You need to be prepared." She demonstrated a simple wrist lock showing how to escape if someone grabbed you. The Valarans tried to copy her movements, but they were so weak and slow compared to humans. What was easy for Nina was nearly impossible for them. After an hour, Nina called a break. Torin approached her looking embarrassed. "Sergeant, I don't think this is working. We're not warriors like humans." "Nobody's born a warrior," Nina said gently. "It's something you learn. My grandmother was a farmer before the resource wars. She never threw a punch in her life. Then the fighting came to her town and she had to protect her family. She learned fast. So can you. But humans are so much stronger than us, faster, tougher." "True. But you can still learn to think tactically, to use tools and weapons to protect each other. Strength isn't everything. Sometimes brains and determination matter more." That evening, Morrison invited the Valaran delegation to dinner in the ship's mess hall. Lyra was curious to see what humans ate. The warning came exactly 2 weeks after the first battle. A Velaran scout ship detected a massive fleet approaching from Kresh territory. They counted over 90 warships, including heavy dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything in the first attack. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the Valiant, studying the enemy fleet composition. "They're not playing around this time." "No, sir," Amy agreed. "That's 3 full Kresh battle fleets. They want revenge. For how long until they arrive?" 36 hours. Morrison turned to his communications officer. "Send a priority message to Admiral Cole. Tell him we need reinforcements immediately." The reply came back 20 minutes later. Admiral Frank Cole's face appeared on Morrison's screen and he was smiling. "Jake, I had a feeling the Kresh wouldn't take that beating lying down. I'm already on my way with 2 carrier groups. We'll be there in 30 hours. That's cutting it close, sir. I know, but we'll make it. In the meantime, start preparing defensive positions. Use the planet's gravity well. Set up minefields. Do everything you can to even the odds. Yes, sir. When the communication ended, Morrison called his senior staff together. Chief Engineer Lucas Grant arrived first, followed by Amy, Helen, and Nina Hayes. We have 36 hours before 90 Kresh warships arrive, Morrison said bluntly. Admiral Cole is bringing reinforcements, but even with his ships, we'll be outnumbered about 2 to 1. I need ideas, Lucas spoke up first. I can program the autonomous mining drones to act as mines. They're not designed for combat, but packed with enough explosives, they'll do damage. We can scatter them throughout the approach vectors. Good. Do it. I can coordinate with the Velerans to set up evacuation centers, Helen suggested. If the battle goes badly, we'll need to get civilians off the planet fast. Make it happen. Nina? The Marine sergeant crossed her arms. Sir, if those ships get past us and land troops, my people can't hold them off forever. We've got 300 Marines total across the 3 ships. The Kresh could land thousands. Then we make sure they don't get past us, Morrison said. Amy, start working on tactical scenarios. I want to know every advantage we can exploit. The next 30 hours were frantic. Lucas and his engineering teams worked around the clock, converting mining drones into improvised mines. Nina's Marines trained the Veleran Defense Forces in basic evacuation procedures. Helen set up triage centers in every major city. On the Valiant's bridge, Amy ran combat simulations constantly. She tried every tactical approach she could think of, but the numbers were brutal. Even with Admiral Cole's reinforcements, they'd be fighting 90 ships with about 40 of their own. Commander Rick Palmer gathered his fighter pilots in the squadron ready room. Many of them looked nervous. The last battle had been intense and they'd lost 3 friends. Now they were going up against 3 times as many enemies. Listen up, Palmer said. I'm not going to lie to you. This is going to be the hardest fight any of us have ever faced. The odds suck. We're outnumbered, outgunned, and the Kresh are coming here specifically to kill us. He paused, looking at each pilot. But here's what the Kresh don't understand. They think numbers are everything. They think if they bring enough ships, we'll break and run. They're wrong. We're humans. We don't break. We don't run. And we sure as hell don't let bad guys hurt innocent people while we're around to stop them. Sarah Kim raised her hand. Commander, what if we don't all make it back? Palmer met her eyes. Then we make sure our deaths mean something. We protect those civilians down there. We give the Valiant and the other carriers time to do their jobs. We do what humans have always done. We stand between the people we care about and the things that want to hurt them. The pilots were quiet for a moment. Then one of them started clapping. Others joined in. Within seconds, the whole room was applauding and shouting. Palmer felt pride and sadness mixing together in his chest. These were good people, and he might be sending some of them to their deaths. Admiral Cole's fleet arrived with 6 hours to spare. The Nebraska and the Carolina were joined by 2 new carriers, the Arizona and the Texas, along with their escort vessels. Cole transferred to the Valiant to coordinate the defense personally. Good to see you, Jake, Cole said, shaking Morrison's hand. Now show me what you've set up. Morrison brought up a holographic display of the Veleran system. We've scattered 300 improvised mines along the most likely approach vectors. Our fighters will use hit-and-run tactics, trying to draw the Kresh into the minefields. The carriers will hold position here, using the planet's gravity to anchor our defensive line. What about their dreadnoughts? Cole asked. Those things are twice the size of our carriers. We focus fire. Take them out one at a time. Their shields are strong, but our railguns can penetrate them if we concentrate fire. Cole nodded slowly. It's risky. If they get through our line, they can bombard the planet. Then we don't let them through. A coalition observer ship had arrived 2 days earlier. Council Representative Tova, a Corinthian, had come to witness the battle. She approached Admiral Cole in the Valiant's observation deck. Admiral, I must ask why you're doing this. Valara Prime isn't a human world. You owe these people nothing. Cole looked out at the stars. Ma'am, with respect, that's where you're wrong. When someone needs help and we can provide it, we owe them everything. That's what separates the good guys from the bad guys. The Kresh enslave people because they can. We protect people because we can. It's that simple. But you could lose. Many humans could die, I know. But if we run, if we let fear stop us from doing what's right, then what's the point of having all this power? My great-grandfather fought in Earth's World War II. He used to say that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what needs to be done despite the fear. Tova studied the human admiral. Your species is very strange. Most civilized beings would negotiate, find a peaceful solution. Sometimes there is no peaceful solution, Cole said. Sometimes you have to fight. And when that time comes, you want humans on your side. The Kresh fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel 12 hours later. War Master Jarn, commander of the Kresh Dominion 2nd, 3rd, and 5th Fleets, looked at his tactical display with satisfaction. 93 warships under his command. The humans had 40 at most. This would be a massacre. All ships battle formation, he ordered. We'll sweep through their defensive line and reduce that planet to ash. The galaxy will learn what happens when you defy the Kresh Dominion. His weapons officer pointed at the scanner. Sir, we're detecting some kind of objects scattered throughout the approach zone. Lots of them. Debris from the last battle, probably. Ignore them, but they weren't debris. When the first Kresh cruiser passed within range of Lucas's improvised mines, 3 of them activated and shot toward the ship at high speed. They impacted simultaneously, and the cruiser's shields flared and died. A 4th mine hit the unprotected hull and detonated, blowing a massive hole in the ship's side. Mines, Jarn's tactical officer shouted. The whole approach vector is mined. All ships evasive maneuvers. Clear those mines. But clearing mines takes time, and time was something the Kresh didn't have. Palmer's fighter squadrons hit them while they were distracted. Missiles and railgun fire tearing into ships that couldn't maneuver freely without hitting mines. This is insane, Jarn muttered. Who mines space? It's not done. His intelligence officer looked miserable. Sir, humans apparently do it. They're not following standard tactical protocols. I can see that. Forward elements push through the mines, accept the casualties. We need to get our dreadnoughts into firing range. The Kresh ships pushed forward, taking losses from mines and fighters. They were bleeding ships, but their sheer numbers were carrying them through. Within an hour, they'd cleared most of the minefield and were approaching the human defensive line. Admiral Cole watched them come. All carriers prepare to fire. Target their dreadnoughts first. Concentrate all fire on one ship at a time. The 4 human carriers and their escort ships opened fire simultaneously. Hundreds of weapons focused on a single Kresh dreadnought. Its shields held for almost 3 seconds before collapsing. Then the railgun rounds hit, punching through the armor like paper. The massive ship broke apart in a series of explosions. Next target, Cole ordered calmly. But the Kresh were firing back. Energy beams and missiles filled space. The Arizona took multiple hits, its armor glowing red-hot. One of the escort destroyers exploded, torn apart by a direct hit from a Kresh battleship. On the Valiant's bridge, Morrison felt his ship shaking as weapons fire pounded the hull. Damage report. Hull breaches on decks 7 and 8. Engineering is sealing them now. Weapons still operational. A massive explosion lit up space as another Kresh dreadnought died. But 2 more were closing in, and the human ships were taking serious damage. Nina Hayes was in the Marine Bay waiting with her troops. If the Kresh got past the fleet, if they landed on Valara Prime, the Marines would be the last line of defense. She could hear the ship shaking from impacts above. Sergeant, are we winning? One of her young Marines asked. We're still here, aren't we? That means we're winning. But Nina knew the truth. This battle was going to be close. Very close. And a lot of good people weren't going to see tomorrow. Above Valara Prime, the battle raged for 3 hours. 3 months after the Battle of Valara's Stand, the Galactic Coalition Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from 43 member species gathered in the Great Hall on the neutral world of Concordia. The subject of the meeting was simple but controversial: what to do about humanity. Ambassador Lyra Shen stood in the visitors' gallery, watching the proceedings. Next to her, Elder Saverin leaned on his staff, his old eyes watching everything carefully. The Thaxian representative spoke first. Her voice was elegant and concerned. Honored council members, we face a troubling situation. The humans have shown remarkable military capability, yes, but they have also shown a disturbing comfort with violence. They destroyed over 50 Kresh vessels in 2 engagements. That level of aggression is unprecedented among coalition members. A Xanthari counselor added his thoughts. Furthermore, their tactics violate several accepted rules of warfare. They mine open space. They ram ships. Their pilots perform maneuvers that would kill most sentient beings. Are these the behaviors we want to encourage in the coalition? Council Representative Tova stood up. As a Corinthian, her species was respected for their wisdom and neutral perspective. I was there. I observed the second battle personally. What I saw was not mindless aggression. I saw calculated defense. The humans came to protect Valara Prime, and they succeeded. Yes, their methods were unconventional. Yes, they're dangerous. But they're dangerous to the right people. That's exactly the problem, the Thaxian representative said. Who decides who the right people are? Today it's the Kresh. Tomorrow it could be anyone who disagrees with human policies. The debate continued for hours. Some species feared humanity. Others admired them. A few saw them as useful tools. But everyone agreed that Earth had changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Finally, Elder Savrin requested permission to speak. As the leader of the world that humanity had defended, he was granted the floor. Honored representatives, he began, his voice carrying through the hall despite his age. I came here today to tell you what I learned about humans. I've read their history. I've studied their biology. I've spoken with their soldiers and civilians, and I've reached a conclusion that may surprise you. He paused, looking around the chamber. Humans are terrifying. This is true. They come from a world classified as a Class 12 death world. Most of us come from worlds rated Class 2 through 4. The Kresh, whom we all fear, evolved on a Class 6 world. Earth is twice as deadly as the Kresh homeworld. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Many representatives already knew this, but hearing it stated so bluntly was still shocking. But here is what you don't understand, Savrin continued. Humans are not aggressive because they enjoy violence. They're aggressive because their entire history taught them that protecting the weak is how communities survive. On Earth, isolated individuals died. Groups that worked together, that defended each other, those groups lived. He straightened up as much as his old body allowed. When the Kresh came to my world, we called for help. The Thaxians offered diplomats. The Corinthians offered mediators. The Zenthari offered their concerns. All very civilized, all very proper, and all completely useless against a fleet of warships. The Thaxian representative looked uncomfortable. We follow protocols. We respect the laws of civilized society. And my people would have been enslaved while you followed your protocols, Savrin said bluntly. The humans didn't wait for permission. They didn't form committees or debate proper procedures. They saw people in danger and they came to help. That is who they are. He pulled up a holographic display showing the battle footage. Ships burning, explosions lighting up space, human fighters weaving through enemy fire with impossible skill. Yes, they fight like nothing we've seen before. Yes, they're comfortable with violence in ways that disturb us, but they also showed my people compassion. After the battles, human doctors treated our wounded. Human engineers helped repair our cities. Human teachers showed our defense forces how to protect themselves. They didn't have to do any of that. They could have left after defeating the Kresh, but they stayed. Tova nodded. Elder Savrin speaks truth. I interviewed many human personnel during my observation. What I found surprised me. They don't see themselves as conquerors or warriors. They see themselves as protectors. Every human I spoke with said the same thing. We fight so others don't have to. The debate shifted after that. The fear was still there, but so was a grudging respect. One by one, representatives stood to share their thoughts. A representative from a small mining colony spoke about how Kresh raiders had threatened their world for years. If humans are willing to patrol our sector, to protect species that can't protect themselves, then I support giving them that authority. Another species, the peaceful Quinn, expressed concerns. But what happens when humans decide we're the enemy? What stops them from using that same military power against us? Elder Savrin answered. The same thing that made them come to Valara's defense. Their culture. I've studied human history extensively these past months. Yes, they've fought wars among themselves. Terrible wars. But in every case, the humans who are remembered as heroes are those who protected the innocent, who stood against tyranny, who sacrificed themselves for others. That is their ideal. That is what they teach their children. The voting took another 2 hours. When it was finished, the result was clear. Humanity would be granted full coalition membership with a special designation. They would be the guardians of the Outer Rim, authorized to patrol vulnerable territories and respond to threats with appropriate force. Captain Morrison received the news while the Valiant was docked at Valara Prime for repairs. Admiral Cole called him personally. Congratulations, Jake. We're full members now, and we've got a new job title. Guardians of the Outer Rim, Morrison read from his datapad. That's a lot of responsibility, sir. It is, but it's also an opportunity. We get to do what we do best, protect people who can't protect themselves. Earth Command is already assigning additional carrier groups to the sector. How many? 10 carrier groups total. Plus support vessels and supply bases. They're building a permanent human presence in this part of the galaxy. Morrison thought about that. 10 carrier groups meant hundreds of ships and thousands of personnel. Earth was making a real commitment to protecting the Outer Rim. Sir, why do you think we're doing this? I mean, really doing this. It's not for resources or territory. What's in it for Earth? Cole was quiet for a moment. You know my great-grandfather's story. World War II. He fought because his country was attacked. But after the war, the United States helped rebuild Europe, including the countries they'd fought against. When I asked him why, he said something I never forgot. What did he say? He said that strength without compassion is tyranny. Power without purpose is just destruction. We had the strength to help people rebuild their lives, so we did. That's what separated us from the bad guys. Morrison nodded slowly. And now we're doing the same thing in space. Exactly. We've got the ships, the training, the willingness to fight. We can either use that power for ourselves, or we can use it to make the galaxy a little bit safer for everyone. I know which choice I want to make. On Valara Prime, the news of Earth's new status was celebrated. The Valarans threw a festival in honor of their human protectors. Lyra helped organize it, and she insisted that Captain Morrison and his crew attend. The festival was held in Valara's capital city. Thousands of Valarans filled the streets, celebrating life and safety. Human sailors and marines walked among them, looking slightly uncomfortable with all the attention. Commander Palmer found himself surrounded by Velaran children who wanted to hear stories about flying fighters. He sat down and told them about the battles, though he left out the scary parts. "Weren't you afraid?" one young Velaran asked. "Terrified," Palmer admitted. "Every single time. But you know what? Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do what needs to be done even though you're scared." Sergeant Nina Hayes was teaching a group of Velaran adults some basic self-defense moves. They were still weak compared to humans, but they were trying hard and learning. "You're getting better," she encouraged them. "Remember, it's not about being the strongest. It's about being smart and determined." Torin, the young Velaran she'd trained before the battle, approached her. "Sergeant Hayes, I wanted to thank you. During the evacuation drills you taught us, we saved over 300 people who would have been caught in the bombardment if the Kresh had gotten through." Nina smiled. "That's what it's all about. Saving lives." Dr. Helen Carter was working with Velaran doctors, teaching them advanced trauma medicine. The techniques humans had developed for battlefield injuries were far ahead of what most coalition species needed, since they rarely faced such violence. But now the Valarans wanted to learn just in case. "The key is to stabilize the patient quickly," Helen explained. "Don't worry about perfection. Worry about keeping them alive long enough to get proper treatment." A Velaran doctor asked, "Is it true that human medical knowledge comes from treating war casualties?" "Partly," Helen admitted. "Humans have fought a lot of wars. We learned a lot about trauma care the hard way. But we also use that knowledge to help accident victims, disaster survivors, anyone." 2 years had passed since the Battle of Valara's Stand. The human presence in the Outer Rim had grown from 10 carrier groups to 20. Earth had built 3 permanent stations in the sector, each one serving as a hub for patrol operations, repairs, and refugee assistance. Captain Jake Morrison now commanded the station called Guardian Base 1, orbiting a neutral world in the sector's center. His promotion to station commander meant less time in direct combat, but more responsibility for coordinating the protection of hundreds of systems. On this particular morning, Morrison sat in his office reviewing reports. The numbers told a story he found both encouraging and sobering. In 2 years, human forces had responded to 47 distress calls. They'd stopped 12 raiding operations, prevented 8 attempted enslaving campaigns, and helped evacuate 6 worlds facing natural disasters. The cost had been high. 312 human personnel had died in those operations. Dozens of ships were damaged or destroyed, but the lives saved numbered in the millions. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in." Lieutenant Amy Brooks entered, now wearing the insignia of a full lieutenant commander. She'd been promoted after the Second Battle of Valara, and now served as Morrison's operations officer. Sir, we have a situation developing in the Delta sector. A species called the Novari are being threatened by pirates. They're requesting human assistance. Morrison pulled up the data on his screen. The Novari were a peaceful species similar to the Valarans. Their world was rich in rare minerals which made them a target for criminals. They had no real military capability. How far away are they? 18 hours at maximum speed. The closest patrol is Captain Julie Martinez on the Defiant. She can be there in 12 hours. Send her. Full carrier group. Tell Julie to use whatever force is necessary to protect those people. Yes, sir. Amy paused at the door. Sir, do you ever think about what would have happened if we hadn't answered that first call from Valara? Every day, Morrison admitted. The Valarans would probably be slaves now. The Kresh would control that whole sector, and humans would have missed our chance to prove we belong in the coalition. Do you think we're doing the right thing? Some people back on Earth are complaining about the cost. They want us to focus on expanding human territory instead of protecting other species. Morrison stood up and walked to his window. Outside, he could see dozens of ships from different species docked at the station. Coalition members who now came to Guardian Base 1 for trade, repairs, and cultural exchange. Amy, my great-grandfather fought in World War II. After the war, some Americans questioned why they were spending money to rebuild Europe. They said we should focus on ourselves, let the Europeans handle their own problems. What happened? The Marshall Plan happened. America spent billions helping rebuild the countries we'd fought against. Know what we got in return? Allies, trading partners, peace. The money we spent came back to us 100 times over, not in dollars but in stability and friendship. He turned back to face Amy. That's what we're doing here. Every species we help becomes an ally. Every world we protect becomes a partner. We're not just building an empire. We're building a community, and that's worth more than all the territory in the galaxy. Captain Julie Martinez received her orders while the Defiant was on routine patrol. A native of Texas, she'd joined the Navy right out of high school and worked her way up through skill and determination. Navigator, set course for the Novari system. Communications, send a message ahead. Tell them help is coming. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Ben Foster, pulled up data on the pirates. Ma'am, these aren't organized like the Kresh. They're a mixed group, different species, maybe 30 ships total. But they're well armed and have no rules of engagement. Pirates never do, Julie said. That's what makes them pirates. But they're about to learn what happens when you mess with people under human protection. The Defiant and its escort ships arrived at the Novari system to find a standoff in progress. The pirate fleet had blockaded the planet, demanding tribute. The Novari had refused, but they had no way to break the blockade. Julie opened a channel to the pirate leader, a being from a species she didn't recognize. This is Captain Martinez of the Earth Defense Force. You are ordered to leave this system immediately. If you comply, you will not be harmed. If you refuse, we will use force. The pirate leader laughed. Humans, we've heard about you. You think you scare us? We've been raiding these systems for 20 years. Go home, little girl, before you get hurt. Julie felt anger flash through her, but she kept her voice calm. I gave you a chance. Amy, target their flagship. Let's show them what human weapons can do. The Defiant fired a single railgun round. It crossed the distance in seconds and punched through the pirate flagship's shields and armor, passing through the ship from bow to stern without detonating. The damage was minimal, but the message was clear. We can kill you anytime we want. That was a warning shot, Julie said. The next one won't be. Leave now. The pirate leader's laughter died. He looked at his damage reports, saw how easily the human weapon had penetrated his defenses, and made a smart decision. All ships were leaving. This sector isn't worth it. The pirate fleet departed quickly. Julie watched them go, then opened a channel to the Novari government. A Novari official appeared on screen, his 3 eyes blinking in relief. Captain Martinez, thank you. We thought we would have to give them everything we had. That's not necessary anymore. The Earth Defense Force is establishing regular patrols through this sector. If the pirates come back, we'll be here to stop them. Why? Why do humans do this? We can offer you nothing in return. Julie smiled. You don't have to offer us anything. Protecting people who need help is just what we do. It's who we are. After the call ended, Ben Foster approached Julie's chair. Captain, that was almost too easy. The pirates ran at the first show of force. Word is spreading, Julie said. Every time we respond to a threat, every time we protect someone, our reputation grows. Pirates are starting to realize that raiding worlds under human protection isn't worth the risk. So we're winning? We're making progress. There's a difference. Back at Guardian Base 1, Morrison received reports of successful operations from all over the sector. Captain Martinez's easy victory at Novari, Commander Rick Palmer's squadron preventing a smuggling operation, the carrier Texas stopping an attempted invasion of a mining colony. But not all the news was good. A distress call had come from a world in the far reaches of the sector. By the time human ships arrived, they were too late. Raiders had already devastated the planet, taking thousands of civilians as slaves. Morrison read the report with a heavy heart. They couldn't be everywhere at once. They couldn't save everyone, but that didn't make the failures any easier to accept. Dr. Helen Carter found him later that evening, sitting alone in the observation deck. Jake, you can't blame yourself for what happened at Tarsus. I don't blame myself. I blame the limitations of physics. We can't travel faster than light allows. We can't be in 10 places at once. But those people died while we were protecting someone else. Helen sat down next to him. You know what I've learned in 2 years of doing this work? Perfection is impossible. We can't save everyone, but the people we do save, they go on to live full lives. They have children. Those children have children. Every person we save creates a ripple effect that touches thousands of other lives. I know you're right. It just doesn't make it easier. It's not supposed to be easy, Helen said. If it was easy, everyone would do it. The fact that it's hard, that it costs us something, that's what makes it meaningful. A message alert interrupted them. Ambassador Lyra Shen was requesting a real-time communication. Morrison accepted it, and Lyra's face appeared on the screen. Captain Morrison, I hope I'm not interrupting. Not at all, Ambassador. How are things on Valara? Peaceful, thanks to you. But I'm calling about something else. I'm at a Coalition Council meeting right now. There's a proposal being debated, and I thought you should know about it. What kind of proposal? Several species want to establish a formal defense treaty with Earth. Not just in the Outer Rim, but throughout the Coalition. They're proposing that human forces be given authority to respond to threats anywhere in Coalition space. Morrison felt surprise. That's a big step. What's driving this? Your success, Lyra said simply. In 2 years, you've made the Outer Rim safer than it's been in 50 years. Pirate attacks are down 70%. Slaver operations have nearly stopped. The Kresh haven't attempted any conquest since you defeated them at Valara. Other regions want the same protection. What does Earth Command say? They're considering it, but they want input from officers in the field, from people like you who actually do this work. Morrison thought carefully. Tell them I support it, but with conditions. We can't do this alone. We need other species to step up too. We can't be the only ones willing to fight. And we need clear rules of engagement. We protect people, not territory. We defend the innocent, not political interests. I'll pass that along, Lyra said. Jake, there's something else. Elder Savrin wanted me to tell you something. He's very old now, probably won't live much longer, but he says the last 2 years of his life have been the happiest because he got to see his